let's talk with Oliver in Brazil. Says there's a compelling difference between Christian creationism and others. Oliver, what's going on?
Hi guys, how are you?
Good.
Good to talk to you. So, well,
Likewise.
as you can see on the screen, I'm an atheist, but due to family and community bonds, I still participate in a minimum amount of church service. And I was discussing with one of the religious people over there over this whole creation story. They started the year studying the Bible, so they're studying Genesis now. And I was showing them how, like many other things that Genesis says, obviously like wrong things about the creation of the earth, like geology and biology, and how it gets wrong. And then he raises this interesting comment. I don't think it's very good theologically, but well, even though it's an interesting comment, he said, well, but did you notice that although the Bible creation story is not maybe perfect and very accurate, it's still very closer to reality than any other creation myth. Like, you don't have the Bible creation myth talking about like gods fighting and one stealing the sword of the other, and opening the sky with the sword or anything like this. And he's like, oh, this is something like you could find a Greek philosopher saying, for example, like what Genesis said. You could find like one of the Greek philosophers talking about that. And so he was trying to use this close proximity, let's say, of the Genesis account with reality, just say that maybe the Christian theology has something like closer to God or something like this. And as I said, I don't believe it's a good theological argument, but I'd like to know your opinion about that, because I don't remember to have ever read anything about this. Like, in a sense, indeed, the Christian story is closer to reality. It doesn't have as many magical elements as the other stories, the other creation stories. So why do you guys think it's that?
Well, I mean, we know that the order is wrong.
Yes.
In Genesis, we definitely know that. But just approaching the argument in general, like the idea that something is more correct than another thing and that makes it like legitimate is a little concerning. If I have a bridge, I'm going to build a bridge, and my bridge only goes like 90% of the way across. Sure, that's better than going 60% of the way across, but it's still not a complete bridge. I still can't use it. It's still not correct. So is being less bad something to strive for? Is that something that we should choose over, trying to find something that's even better than that?
Yeah, you're totally right. Like, as I said, I don't believe it's a good theological argument, but I was thinking on the other side. Like, for example, if the Bible creation myth was a little bit more magical in a way, like if it involved other things that are more clearly wrong, maybe we wouldn't have like so much debate over like teaching creationism in the schools and so on. So I was really thinking like, why?
It's been a minute since I've read the Genesis creation story, but off the top of my head, it's pretty magical for God to literally use magic words to create everything. That is how everything starts, right? God says, let there be light, and there is light. And God says, let there be this, and let there be that. And these things just poof into existence. That sounds pretty magical to me. SDB mentioned the order being off. I would ask your friend, what is it they think about plants being created before the sun, for example? That's a pretty big red flag. That's not a magical necessarily beyond the magic word thing, but it's inconsistent with reality. But as we tiptoe further down the path of the Genesis creation myth, we have man being formed out of dirt and God breathing into the nostrils of the dirt man, and that's how the first human being is alleged to have come into existence. That's pretty magical. The way that the first woman comes into existence, God causes the man to fall into a deep sleep and takes one of his ribs out and crafts a woman from a rib. That sounds pretty magical to me. If you keep going, you're going to run into talking animals. There's a magic tree. You're going to run into, after they get their asses kicked out of Eden, there's going to be an angel with a magical flaming sword guarding the entrances to the garden, the magic garden, so that they can't go back in. It's all pretty fucking magical.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe what I should have replied to him is not, it's not that it isn't as magical as the other ones. Maybe the other ones were more creative into the mystical creatures that they've created, and maybe the biblical one wasn't as much creative, and so they interpret this lack of creativity as being closer to reality. I don't know.
Well, and I'm assuming that your friend is a Christian. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's accurate.
So here's why Genesis matters so much to many Christians. And this is why it mattered so much in the church that I grew up in. So as a final magical element here in the Genesis creation story, so Adam and Eve, they're in the garden, and there's the magical tree that they're not supposed to eat from. And they eat it, they eat the fruit, and they disobey God. And that is how sin enters the world. Okay. And sin it's a curse that is transmitted down throughout humanity. And it's this magical curse of sin that necessitates Jesus coming and dying for our sin. The whole thing is it's I mean, if you speak very frankly about it, Christianity, there is a curse that enters the world because a rib woman eats fruit from a magic tree. And the way that curse is lifted from humanity is through a human sacrifice blood ritual, followed by the magical resurrection of the victim of this crucifixion. So it is layers on layers of magic. And it all starts with the magic in Genesis. Christians hate it when you call it that, but it is what it is.
You're right. And so, just to give you a bit more context, I've discussed with other Christians about like this thing about like the creation myth, and to other ones it was easy to understand, like, oh, maybe scribes who translated and copied maybe made mistakes, and so that's why the story got confused between the days and so on. But I've been raised in the Mormon religion, and for the Mormons it's not just Genesis, but like Joseph Smith wrote other books in which he says to have received revelation from God, that he actually saw the things that God showed to Moses. And so for them, there's no path, like they can't say just, oh, it was a mistake from a scribe or something like this. They have to really accept the literality of the Genesis account, because the prophet have affirmed that those things are right, and so, yeah, it's very complicated to have an argument with them, but you certainly gave me some ideas on how to continue my conversation with him.
Yeah, well, that's good. And the reason why I brought up all the stuff about how Genesis leads to Jesus is for a couple reasons. One, just so you can have an awareness of it, but also so you can sort of approach this from a position of compassion and empathy, and recognize why it may be so important for Genesis to be propped up. I mean, the whole thing with organizations like like Answers in Genesis and all of the creationist charlatans that you can find here operating on YouTube, is, as far as I've seen, it is universal that the reason it's so important is because without a literal Genesis and a literal Adam and Eve, there's no need for there to be a literal human sacrifice back in Bronze Age Jerusalem. Like it doesn't make any sense. So keep that in mind when you're talking to them, because this, for many people, once you expose how like literally everything we know about reality, everything we know about science, exposes Genesis for the myth that it is. And once that myth is established, once people recognize Genesis for what it is, it becomes a lot harder to hold on to like a literal, especially like a conservative or an evangelical brand of Christianity. So good luck with those conversations, I would say. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers.
Yeah.
I wish you all a very good weekend.
Yeah. Answers in Genesis. That's what we do around here. Have a good one.